program is the way to go. I invite you to join me each week as we explore places to go and things to do. Today I'm welcoming back, and that's a choice word, welcome. I'm welcoming back two of my favorite authors who've done a wonderful group of guidebooks, not only about New York City and the area, Westchester, but the whole Northeast, Eastern Seaboard. Their latest book, and that's why I stress the word welcoming, is Walks in Welcoming Places. We'll find out more about that from my guests, who are Marina Harrison and Lucy Rosenfeld. And I'm so glad you came back here. And we can talk about Walks in Welcoming Places. What a great title. But how do you define it? What's a welcoming place?
Well, this book is particularly for people who are not the most athletic and agile walkers.
Me.
It's for people who are perhaps with strollers, babies, who are handicapped, who have wheelchairs, or who are elderly, or who simply like to stroll rather than to exhaust themselves.
So it's a very narrow market, but it's a broad, narrow market, really, when you come down to it,
yes.
Because there are so many people that fit into that category.
Well, we hope so. Yes, we do.
But it's so interesting that you have found this market. I guess there's a vast audience of people who are not hikers. I'm doing a whole series on walking tours and books on walking, and some of them are for hikers. I recently interviewed someone who says you've got to be rugged. You've got to be able to not climb mountains, but really go on long hikes. Obviously, this book is not for people like that.
No, although I think people like that would like it as well, but it's really aimed at people, as Lucy said, that enjoy more gentle walks
and who
for whatever reason.
And who have an interest in art, perhaps, that they could see, or nature, or pretty villages, who like to walk and with their friends or whoever and talk and not struggle en route.
It's a walker's book for non-walkers in a sense, isn't it? And there are people who maybe are turned off because they think that walking requires a lot of time, a lot of energy, and so on.
Well, the walking can be all kinds of things to all kinds of people. People walk for exercise, and some people just walk because they like to climb and exhaust themselves. This is more for people who are interested in what's around them. Wouldn't you say?
Yes, I think so. And also, I mean, quite frankly, there are people in wheelchairs. And in fact, on the cover of the book, there's a little wheelchair sign. And these people like to get out, as most people do, and this enables them. This book enables them to do that, as well as the elderly, as well as mothers with strollers and so forth. So that's really... Yes.
Marina, you mentioned the cover of the book. The cover of the book is a very pleasant,
it's pretty,
pastoral scene, a bridge and flowers, and of course, as you say, the wheelchair, so that people will understand that it reaches this group. You've done how many books now? This is our fourth book. And there's a certain emphasis that you have in all of them. There's a certain style that you have in all of them. First of all, you go on all of these walks, don't you?
That style that you're talking about comes from long acquaintanceship with each other. We're childhood friends. We've been going on walks together for, I hate to tell you how many years. Lots of years.
Since fourth grade.
Yes, and we have been walking and visiting interesting places together for a lifetime, really. So that what you get, that style, that's partly the way we talk together. We like to look at things for what they're worth. We're both interested in art.
And we chat the whole time that we visit these places.
Yes.
We don't stop talking.
And we make judgments on what we think is special about a place.
You see things differently. I noticed in this book, and we'll get specific about some of the places, but I noticed that in this book, and in all of your others, I suppose, that they're not long, detailed, more than you want to know type of information. You get an awful lot. You give a new perspective. Places that I know, I would say that in this book, I've been to about 50% of the places.
That's amazing, because a lot of people haven't explored these places.
I do explore a lot.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that even those places that I go to, I read in your book and I learn more about them, so that I want to go back to some of them and see them because of what's in your book, and I plan to do so after having left it. Let's talk about your favorite places before we talk about my favorite places. Are there any favorites that are in this book that you want to talk about?
I'll tell you about a place that's very close to here, which I love, and I know you love it too, and that's PepsiCo in Purchase.
Yes.
And it's an ideal place for anyone, but especially for the group that we talked about. And the reason I found out about it was my mother's in a wheelchair, and I took her onto PepsiCo, and it's a wonderful sculpture park. It's really a part of it's the corporate headquarters of the PepsiCo company, and it's a lovely park with wonderful modern sculpture, and it's really interesting to see it. And it's beautifully landscaped, and it's just a very pleasant place.
Shows you what corporations can do to make their properties accessible and interesting to the public.
Yes, and you can drive
one of the
there.
Best
you can drive there 7 days a week.
Yes,
and you can park.
Their gardens as well.
You can park
free of charge.
Very
and they
close.
give you a map.
Very close to a path that takes you out where all the sculpture.
Yes.
But then there's the aspect that I've been there many times. Reading through your book, I see the things that I know in a different light.
Well, we tried to focus on the art there and to tell people what they're going to see and how to look at it a little bit without making judgments over what we think is fine and what we don't. And
yet you do.
In a way.
Well, you talk about your favorites. We're back to favorites.
Well, we mentioned favorites, but we try not to be too doctrinaire about what we see on our walks. We pick the things that we like very much. One of my favorite places is not far from here at all. It's actually in New York, in Riverdale. It's Wave Hill. And Wave Hill was the former home of Toscanini.
And Mark Twain. And Churchill. There were lots of people there.
And it's a wonderful estate. That's right. And it overlooks the Hudson. The view is wonderful. And it has changing outdoor art exhibitions, sculpture, and it also has some wonderful formal gardens, including a beautiful lily pond that reflects like Japanese art. It's very beautiful. And it's quite unknown in terms of people spending time there. We never have found it crowded.
Which is surprising because it's in New York City. You would think that people would know about these places, but they really don't.
But that is not true, because you ask a New Yorker, when was the last time you went to the top of the Empire State Building, and 90% of the people have never been to the Empire State Building.
True.
So something that is too close to you, and I think that's one of the things we try to do in this program, something that is too close to you, too easily accessible, is not fun. For instance, this past summer, I went to California to see San Simeon, the Hearst Castle. I went to California and I did some other things, but that was my objective. Now, people are coming from all over the United States and all over the world to see Keiket.
Yes, we went there.
The Rockefeller home.
Estate.
And as a matter of fact, it's so popular that they're sold out through 1996.
It's perfectly awful. It's perfectly awful, the number of people and the how long you have to wait.
It's amazing now. But how many people locally, since it is so close, are making plans to go there? So you really have to appreciate all these great attractions that are right around the corner.
Yes.
Free in many cases. I know Wave Hill is free on weekends. There is a charge on weekdays.
Yeah, on weekends there's a charge. During the week it's free.
During the week
is free.
And empty. But we have to say that a lot of people don't walk because they don't know where to go. It gets to be Saturday morning or something, and they say, what should we do? And our hope is that this series of books gives them some ideas what they should do, because there are so many nice places around.
And you can make your decision based upon this great idea in your index on either the location, because you have them by area, or by the type, gardens, architecture.
Which we call choosing an outing.
That's right. We have college campuses, too, which are interesting. We include Princeton and Smith College and Hofstra. And one that very few people know about is called Georgian Court, and it's in Lakewood, New Jersey, and that's a very unusual campus. Very beautiful. It has classical sculptures and beautiful gardens.
And that was a former estate that became a college some time ago, and it's probably an oasis you can't imagine when you get into southern New Jersey. You've never been there.
No,
we hadn't heard of it.
No, I've been to none of the colleges you mentioned.
It was one of those serendipitous finds, the Georgian Court College. Of course, the people around there knew about it, but up in our...
How do you people discover them?
Well, we hear about them through the grapevine sometimes.
Hearsay.
Or we chance upon them. We stumble upon them as we're looking for someplace else. I mean, I think that Georgian Court might have been in that category.
Yes.
Somebody had mentioned it to us, but we knew nothing.
Also magazines, advertisements, all kinds of old guidebooks. We like the WPA guidebook from the 1930s. Sometimes gives us a clue.
Those in-flight magazines, sometimes, if you're flying somewhere, you read them. I don't know, the United Airlines, or all of them have their own magazines, and sometimes you find interesting articles in there about gardens or about places to visit.
I've discovered things in other ways. Sometimes my experience has been reading one of your books. I have suddenly, on the way to someplace I've never been before, turn a corner and I discover something. I discovered a wonderful old cemetery. I saw a sign on, I can't remember the trip, but it was several years ago, and discovered this wonderful old cemetery with these old headstones, and there it was.
We have in our Art on Site book, we have an amazing cemetery outside of Philadelphia that really takes the cake for plantings and for original tombs that are all in the shape of architectural wonders. There's a pyramid, and there's a Parthenon, there's an obelisk, and these were all burial spots from the late 19th century.
As regular viewers of this program know, I am very interested in cemetery tours. I have had one program on which I had some people from cemeteries on, Kensico Cemetery and Woodlawn Cemetery. I've talked about Greenwood in Brooklyn, which is a wonderful...
And Tarrytown, maybe Sleepy Hollow.
Sleepy Hollow is a great cemetery. And the people who were on from the various cemeteries said, what a wonderful program to be on, to talk about cemeteries, a program called The Way to Go.
It's an acquired taste, I'm afraid, visiting cemeteries. Everybody doesn't like them. Some people think it's gruesome to walk around cemeteries, but we do include a couple in our books.
I don't agree with that, and it's interesting because there's so much history there, and there's so much beautiful trees and
sculpture,
sculpture, and there's so many interesting stories on it. I remember that Danny Kaye is buried supposedly at the Kensico Cemetery, and he has a bench actually instead of a headstone, which has airplanes and performances.
Oh, really?
And I interviewed on this program Martin Gottfried, who was a drama critic, who wrote a biography on Danny Kaye, and he says, well, that's impossible because he was cremated. So now we have to do some further research.
Well, maybe it's just a marker.
It could be.
Just a marker.
We'll have to find out the answer to that.
Right.
You mentioned in your other books, you started it all with
Walker's Guidebook.
The Walker's Guidebook.
Was first.
And we have brought along some of your books here, and that was your first book.
Right.
And then you went from that to Art Walks of New York.
Yes, and that's a brand new edition.
Brand new edition. Did the Times do a very nice story on that?
Yes. September 24th, they did.
And then, of course, a book that I really like, Art on Site.
Which is dear to our hearts because we're both art lovers and we liked finding places where painters had the views that they had painted.
And there were all kinds of... This one went further afield than any, I think. It went from Maine to Maryland, which was a great territory.
Yeah, so you've really spread the area in where you've gone.
Yes.
Here, you call it the Northeast, but it's...
It's about 3.5 hours from here. A circle around.
The furthest one is in New Hampshire, and that's Espay. And then the furthest south is in Pennsylvania, so it's from New Hampshire to Pennsylvania.
But these are all places that you could go in one day from home. No matter where you lived in that region, you could get there and get home again in the same day. Whereas the Art on Site goes a little farther afield, and you might want to make a weekend of it in some places. So
let's talk about some of the more of the specifics. You choose, and then maybe I'll choose, and anywhere you want to go. What do you want to talk about?
We liked in Walks and Welcoming Places, we have a towpath along a canal in Pennsylvania that's outside of New Hope, which is quite a tourist attraction, but we prefer the towpath to the tourist attraction because you can walk along under a lot of weeping willows. It's very beautiful, and it's quite long. You could go absolutely indefinitely because that canal runs all the way out into western Pennsylvania. But if you could have a car pick you up at the other end, you could just keep walking, or else you could make a return trip, and you can take a boat one way and walk back. So that's a very nice...
And how are they towed? How are the boats towed?
The boats are still towed by donkeys, and they were towed by them in the past too. And you can take that very slow cruise down the towpath and then on a barge and walk back.
And then there's sometimes someone who's playing a guitar.
Yes, it's very picturesque, and that might be a nice thing for somebody who's not energetic to do.
It's about 80 miles from here, or something like that.
Yeah,
it's not that far.
It's not even that far, I think. An hour and a half, something like that.
If you like natural walks, I think there's some very nice ones along the Hudson. We described one in Nyack, which is dear to my heart because I grew up in that area, and I used to take it as a child.
Where's that?
It's in Nyack. It's called Nyack Beach Park, and it's right north of the town of Nyack, of the village of Nyack. And as far as you can go, and you park your car, and you see the most wonderful views of the Hudson.
We're partial to waterside walks. We just love them. and we have several in the book. This one is along the Hudson, the one she's talking about, and the ducks are swimming, and there's a sheer palisades on the one side and the river on the other.
I discovered that by accident one day, and I just could not believe that this place existed.
It's pretty, isn't it? Unspoiled.
And it's quite far. You can go quite far. And
you can go all the way up to Haverstraw.
You see Sing Sing and other places.
Can't you go all the way to Haverstraw?
You can, except I think I mean, that's really far.
That's really far walk. But we don't expect our walkers from this book to go that far.
And it's an easy walk because you park very close by and you walk right down the edge of the water.
That's it.
That's one of the things. These walks that we describe in Welcoming Places are mostly flat, because we recognize that when either you're in a wheelchair or you want to do a gentle walk, you don't want to climb up and down hills.
And also they have a surface that is acceptable to wheelchairs. That's very important for people in wheelchairs. Dirt roads and grassy things are very hard to push, and so are strollers, as you know. So we tried to find places in this book that really accommodate rolling vehicles.
I do want to remind my viewers at this point that we're talking about the book Walks in Welcoming Places, and the authors are here, Marina Harrison and Lucy Rosenfeld, who've been on this program before with some of their other books. I find them great. I use them all the time. I recommend them highly. They're available in bookstores. They're available in museums. Very, very interesting books. I want to talk about one place that I did discover through you, but I have discovered some new things, and that is Usonia.
Right, Frank Lloyd Wright's.
Yeah, why don't we talk about that a little bit? It happens to be a favorite place of mine. I've taken a lot of people there, but I learned a lot from you on it. So
it's in Pleasantville,
which is near here.
And it's a planned community that Frank Lloyd Wright designed. The idea was to have communal property. All the houses were to be in circular plots so that there were no boundaries from one to the next.
And no one actually owned the property.
That's right. And they were modern houses that were laid out in a very specific plan. And although Frank Lloyd Wright only designed several of them, his students designed the rest, and they still exist, and it's a nice walk.
It's very nice, and there is a man there whose name we won't mention on the air, because in any case, he's the town historian, and he's very interested in telling people about them. But in the book, we talk about him as well.
We give his phone number.
And we do give his phone number, because it makes it interesting to talk to somebody who's from that era, who still lives in his original house. And it's...
I was going to say that one of the things that I like about your books is you tell people how to get there. And very clearly, I know that sometimes a place like Usonia, which is not quite easy to find if you're just exploring, there are no signs, although the name of the road is Usonia Avenue or Street or whatever it is.
Yes.
But you can't find it unless you know how to get there.
Well, I have to tell you that we spend a lot of time researching these books, and we get lost a fair amount of time, and it's very annoying because we set ourselves so many places to look at on a given trip, and if we have to spend an hour driving around looking for whatever it was because the directions were no good, we get very annoyed. So we really do feel that directions are important.
I agree with that. Many years ago, I wrote a magazine article called Get Lost and Love It. And basically what it said is that there are wonderful places to discover all within 10 miles of where you live. And all you have to do is explore and get lost. You'll never stay lost for long because you're so close to home and you'll find a familiar road.
I like that concept.
Except when you're way far from home, it's not fun.
No, it's not fun there. But as I say, and so I say, go on right turn trips and make all the right turns you can, and you'll find places right around the corner that you didn't know were there, and some other ideas that I had.
Right.
And so when you say get lost and discover it, I understand that very, very clearly.
Well, we often have directions. We must ask how many people a day when we're on our trips.
Yes.
We roll down the window and ask whoever's there.
And we sometimes get 3 different directions.
Yes.
Which is the way it works.
Now, of course, you do all of the trips that you talk
absolutely.
about.
Yes, we would never write anything up.
In fact, we do a lot more trips than we have indicated in these books. I mean, of the ones we've done, I don't know if we do.
So let's start from here now.
Less than half.
So here's a concept. We want to do walks and welcoming places. We want to do a book about places that are accessible to the disabled, you can go with children, that you can go in strollers, that if you're older it's fine, and it's flat and all of that. So you have this vast amount of knowledge, and you say, now these are the ones that we select, and then you've got many more, enough to fit into 10 books.
Well, we don't write everything up.
So how do you then?
Well, we drive home. We drive home and we say, well, let's include this one or that one. We never disagree on what was a worthy walk.
It has to be a walk that appeals to us, either aesthetically or from many points of view. I mean, we don't just accept anything. We want it to be a pretty, a pleasing environment that would appeal.
Unspoiled.
To people. Unspoiled.
Not too many commercial vehicles.
Not too crowded.
Yep.
Things like that.
We actually don't like. We have our own prejudice against overly touristy places. Mm-hmm. I know a lot of people recommend well-known tourist sites, but we are sort of turned off when we start to see the tour buses pulling up. We usually pull out. We just aren't into that. And so if we can find an unspoiled village, or a college campus, or someplace that people can go and be alone with what it is they're seeing, more often than seeing a large tour.
By groupings, look in your index or remember the groupings that you have and some of the categories that you have.
We have indoor and outdoor gardens, and that's the category everybody loves.
That includes conservatories, such as the Doris Duke Conservatory in New Jersey, Somerville, New Jersey. Conservatories are wonderful in the winter because they're warm and everything's blooming and they make you feel like spring on a cold day.
And we have botanical gardens in various places. Then we have a lot of village walks and architectural walks, such as Usonia that we mentioned before, and unspoiled villages such as Litchfield and Southport. And we do sculpture parks and outdoor art because people, I think, are interested in those kinds of things.
They make walking so interesting.
Now, one of the sculpture attractions, which is really a favorite of mine, is the Noguchi Museum in Long Island City, which nobody knows about.
Isn't that amazing?
And by the way, you can take a bus there right from the city.
Really?
A special bus.
From New York?
From New York. It leaves in Midtown, and it takes you right to the museum.
Really?
Yes. We give you the number to telephone, which tells you what time it leaves.
And the interesting thing about that walk is the contrast between the Noguchi Museum and across the street, the Socrates Park, which is a very, very contemporary park with unbelievable sculptures.
That's where they, for six months at a time, New York's sculptors can put up a sculpture outdoors. They can build it right there, and you can watch them building it and whatever they're using, from rubber tires to steel. And
it's right next to Marty Suvero's workshop or studio.
Well, he's the driving force.
He was the driving force. He took this weedy old plot of abandoned land and rented it for $1 from the city originally, and asked if he could set up some sculptures of his and his friends. And that's how it started, and it's now become the newest public park. We went to the dedication last year. It was quite amazing. Yes.
And of course the Noguchi is this wonderfully refined place across the street.
Elegant and
beautiful and a very contemplative.
Delicate Japanese garden with dripping fountains and very quiet stone sculptures.
And he planned it that way. He wanted this museum. And
that's right.
His work is unbelievable. And if you've seen the films about the things he's done, it's just unbelievable. That is a place that is worthwhile. I put it on everybody's A list. I really think it's great.
I agree.
And then what else?
We have a category specifically for children.
Yes, and this is one where we feel that children would be both well received and would enjoy it themselves.
For example, we have a topiary garden.
Yes.
In Rhode Island, and that's a lot of fun because these are all in shapes of animals.
These are plants, yew hedges generally, that are trimmed to make shapes of things. That's topiary art. It goes back to the Romans.
There's two types of topiary. There's one that's naturally that you shape out of the natural nose with a wire frame on them.
Right, and then there's just a very thick yew hedge or boxwood hedge that's cut into shapes. Anyway, Green Animals, which is up in Rhode Island, is a topiary garden. Green Acres. That is just extraordinary. Everything is a big animal, from giraffes to hippopotamus, and kids love it.
Whimsical place.
Yeah, kids love it.
And for anybody who doesn't know what topiary is, if they saw Edward Scissorhands, they would know.
That's correct. That's correct. Yes.
We also have, among our other categories, we have museums and artists' homes, and we include Chester Wood, which was Daniel Chester French's home in Massachusetts, and
Asbay in where Augustus St. Gaudens, they call it St. Gaudens, in
One
New
of the
Hampshire.
best. One of the absolutely best.
That is a beautiful estate in the mountains in New Hampshire. Highly recommended both to garden lovers, art lovers, walkers of all sorts.
We also have a category called guided tours available, and it's places where you can actually have a guided tour. And some people prefer that to going on their own.
What are some of those?
Right here. Look at the...
We have Longwood, which is one of the gardens we mentioned before. Which
the botanical gardens.
We have Smith College in Massachusetts, which is a wonderful college campus, and they have a very interesting tour of there. They have a very comprehensive horticultural garden.
And Princeton University, which has wonderful outdoor art, all sorts, Picasso, everything famous and not so famous, but very interesting collection of art. And they will take you on a tour and tell you what everything is as you go. But we also tell you in our book if you want to do it by yourself. Some people prefer guided tours. They don't want to have to figure out which way to go by themselves. And that's fine. I think they're a wonderful boon to those who like them.
It's like going to a museum. Sometimes you just want to surf the museum, and sometimes you want someone to point out to you.
I like that expression.
Yes, what to do and where the best place to do it is.
And what specifically to see and point out what's going on.
We also point out in here that you can generally pick up some sort of a guide to these places at the desk when you enter.
Well, what we have done here is surf this program completely, and we've run out of time, and I thank you both for coming. It's a wonderful book.
It's our pleasure.
The name of the book is Walks in Welcoming Places. My guests today have been Marina Harrison and Lucy Rosenfeld, the authors of this and other books, and another one that they're working on now. Great books. Go get it. I'm Norman Liss. The name of the program is The Way to Go, and until next week at the same time, enjoy yourself.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you for having us. We enjoyed it.